In the deepest recesses of Korea's most powerful special secret forces, a way of life was about to be put to an end. Little did the elite unit realize as they met for a special promotion ceremony that one individual would permanently change their lives. When it was revealed that everyone would have to participate in a violent battle for survival, the promotion ceremony unexpectedly took a sudden turn. The honor and obligation would go to whoever was still standing, but a shadowy figure had other ideas. The long-standing custom was broken by this deranged person's tremendous might. The unit members were horrified by this turn of events and began to doubt their allegiance. The origin of the mayhem was the topic of a forced discharge, which evolved into a myth that spread across society and exposed the presence of covert special forces. Mr. Ju Hyuk, a worker in an office remote from the front lines, was going through his own hardships in the chaos. Even used tissues were thrown at him by his discordious supervisor, who was notorious for assigning tasks to others without consulting them. Mr. Ju Hyuk's frustration increased as he thought about the company's poisonous personnel. But destiny is a surprise in store. The lives of the workers were intertwined with a shadowy operation known only as the Two Puppet Project. Mr. Ju Hyuk was abruptly attached to a voice in his brain and thrust into a terrifying experiment. When Mr. Ju Hyuk found a pair of company-provided spectacles, things took a sharp turn. He understood to his dismay that removing them would cause an electric shock. He questioned the truth of his surroundings and was overcome with doubt and panic. Miss Soo-yeon, a colleague, saw Mr. Ju Hyuk's discomfort in the commotion and offered her assistance. She urged him to reject the system because she too was weary of the hostile workplace. The relationship developed, which resulted in a private meeting and arrangements for an after-work night out. The haughty boss, who felt intimidated by Mr. Ju Hyuk's fame, broke up their brief break. The staff was given an unexpected assignment as tensions grew, turning their lives into a risky game. Failure had a price and it hung over them. Mr. Ju Hyuk recognized that this wasn't a joke and he became confused and desperate. The company's cutting-edge AR technology seemed to be controlling the workers' life and they were unwittingly caught in a nefarious experiment. Mr. Ju Hyuk addressed his boss in a fit of wrath and demanded explanations, but his superiority had given him a smug and conceited attitude. Unaware of the implications, he challenged Mr. Ju Hyuk to a strength test. Mr. Ju Hyuk unexpectedly outperformed expectations in a way that left his supervisor speechless. Mr. Ju Hyuk had an odd sensation of elation as the game went on, finally escaping the routine of his daily existence. He was unaware that a strange force was causing the money in his account to increase. No matter how absurd the circumstances, it appeared like the attraction of riches drew him to engage even more. He was drawn into high-stakes tasks that offered great money while on a secret assignment. He repeatedly demonstrated my faultless assignment completion. I investigated this exceptional potential since increasing money was too alluring. My goals expanded as he completed assignments. He successfully sprinkled soda on Director Kim's orchid, ordered sushi alone for lunch, slept overnight in the CU's office, and exposed Deputy Manager Park Gupsu's adultery. He earned 580 million won in 3 days. The P099 exam ended my victory. Failing this exam prevented participants from continuing to the main mission. Failure meant resetting all fortunes. He wanted clarification regarding the mission. I wanted to know where he got his mystery spectacles. He timidly asked my boss about the company's custom-made spectacles, hoping for a hint. The manager seemed oblivious, which was a comfort. I doubted these spectacles and the game's purpose. He left work early to search for answers elsewhere. He found a money bag contest in progress at the area on my glasses. Holding the money bag for 10 minutes will earn 300 million won. Anyone whose suitcase was taken was lost equally. He prepared to defend my luggage. He was unaware that experienced participants would try to convince me to give up the bag calmly. He understood he had to resist their solicitations. Strangers mocked my naivety and warned me against avarice. He challenged them, intending to outwit and defeat them. I navigated the pandemonium using my special forces experience. He changed his strategy after seeing his opponents working together. He persevered. The fight escalated with daggers and insults until a head strike knocked me out. The effect revealed that this game exploited players' insatiable need for money, turning them into puppets. He understood everyone was influenced by their greed. The other members faced bankruptcy when the debt reached its maximum. P0116 appealed for aid, knowing the game's organizers had planned for such situations. Their goal was clear. Participants would become impossibly wealthy or lose everything with no way out. After this terrifying insight, he became a reluctant pawn in a greed-driven game. His destiny depended on his decisions. He had to survive the hazarded route to fortune. The stakes were quite high since the challenge had been issued. The 300 million won prize loomed in the contestants' imaginations, tempting them to rise to the occasion and take the final challenge. But the possibility of failure was also frightening. Their hopes as well as the desired prize money may be destroyed by a single stroke from the enigmatic figure's bag. As the group considered their alternatives, anxiety permeated the air. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, they waited as frustration and dread coexisted. The immensity of their bills consumed their thoughts, and the idea of losing everything all at once was intolerable. They frantically searched for a solution, a means to outwit their adversary without putting their own lives in jeopardy. As they thought, time seemed to drag, and each second added to their anxiety. An ounce of resolve at last broke through the cloud of doubt. There was no turning back now. They were unable to flee. Their previous lives simply gave a complex web of doubt and despair, not any consolation. They made plans to meet the impending issue head-on since there was no other option. They were prepared to overcome the difficulties since the 900 million won debt had strengthened their determination. They banded together, mustered their guts, and came up with a strategy. Their instincts for survival took over as they realized the strength of working together. In an effort to obstruct their opponent's approach, they seized anything they could. As they launched the missiles towards their intended victim, their hearts raced with a combination of terror and grit. But to their horror, it seemed pointless. Their attempts were ineffective since they were unable to stop the enigmatic figure's obstinate pursuit. As it became clear that their efforts had been futile, frustration grew. They were on the verge of going insane from the anxiety of becoming bankrupt and imminent disaster. However, a voice cut through the noise and reaffirmed their resolve to see this through to the conclusion. They prepared for the last fight since there was no going back at this point. The participants felt comfort in their common suffering because they experienced a feeling of solidarity despite their hopeless situation. As they accepted their shared struggle, the mutual dread of the unknown served as a spark for unification. The burden of their indebtedness was no longer overwhelming, rather it served as motivation for their steadfastness. The truth about the mysterious owner of the money bag was revealed as the conflict came to a head. The participants' brains were rocked by the discovery, which exposed the nefarious puppeteers, the operators, pulling the strings from the shadows. It became obvious how tightly they controlled the dark web and how much money they had access to illegally. The challenger's expertise, which astounded many who had followed him, caused the tension to change. The lady became curious and demanded explanations from the enigmatic guy. He was aware that since the construction site he had been being watched, but the cause was still unknown. He became aware of their linked goals and a shaky ceasefire developed. Information became the coin they wanted to trade as questions crowded the room. They were beginning to attempt to discover the truth behind the fatal missions when secrets and motivations began to intersect. The man's admission of his own involvement in the discovery of a gadget on his ankle provided further insight into their common situation. They were all unsuspecting players in the operator's vast game, so the discovery affected them deeply. Each member wanted their own kind of escape and freedom, and money merged into their wishes. Making billions felt like a great opportunity to purchase their escape from this terrifying planet. The guy suggested a simple game as the discussion came to close as a way to gauge his skills and determination. The challenge to accept P002's request for a personal random game lingered in the air. His understanding of the genuine nature of this game was obscured by uncertainty. They were moved by the man's zeal and determination to overcome obstacles, however. The player's faces lit up with confusion as he pondered the nature of the game that lay ahead. He wasn't aware of the talents concealed behind his spectacles, so the man's perplexity matched his own. As he was ready to encounter the unknown, curiosity and eagerness coexisted. As the guests assembled for the corporate dinner, the atmosphere in the room was electric with expectation. Mr. Zhuyuk, a guy renowned for his excellent gambling abilities, was one of them. Unknown to the others, he attended the specific function with a hidden agenda. Mr. Zhuyuk had a fantastic personal record of 14 victories and only 1 loss, placing him third in the gambling world, as Gu Hunmo. He oozed mystery and confidence. Unaware of Mr. Zhuyuk's actual identity, President Baek Dok-myeon met him later in the evening because he was worried about his dismal attitude. The president gave his aid, not realizing that he'd been captured by a skillful gambler. He had no idea that Mr. Zhuyuk had previously cheated him out of millions via a number of games. When it was finally game time, a voice bellowed to signal the beginning of the match. It was referred to as the random game. Simple tasks with a round of rock, paper, scissors as the first challenge, double dice as the second challenge, and another round of rock, paper, scissors as the final challenge were the only requirements. The person with the highest overall dice score would win the last round. The game's rules were simple. If the 2 dice did not match, the one with the most pips won. In the event of a pair, the player's score would be determined by multiplying the dice's pips. Each chip had a value of 10 million won, and each side started off with 88. Mr. Ju-hyuk firmly made a wager of 100 million won at the start of the first round. He had deliberately targeted President Baek Duk-man as his victim, which the other participants were unaware of. Even while the president first succeeded in winning the round, it was really a ploy to draw him further into the game. Every round that went by saw the president continuing to lose, his millions falling into Mr. Ju-hyuk's hands. The president was perplexed by a streak of losses and had no idea how he had fallen victim to a skillful gambler. Realizing the terrible ramifications of his enormous financial losses, his thoughts raced. The other guests watched the performance unconcerned about the president's predicament. Some muttered about the financial blunder, the odd conduct of Mr. Ju-hyuk, and the possible consequences for his future. They were worried, but they figured things would go back to normal shortly. President Baek Duk-man was once furious again at the table. Mr. Ju-hyuk was criticized for his alleged ineptitude and lack of desire as he lashed out at him. The president became so enraged that he threatened Mr. Ju-hyuk and used physical force on him, promising rewards for each slap he took. Mr. Ju-hyuk took advantage of the circumstance and deftly played along, seeming to embrace the president's remarks and expressing appreciation for the mental education. He expertly diffused the situation and persuaded the president that he had changed his perspective and would put in more effort going forward. President Baek Duk-man fought against his shackles as he started to realize how bad things were. The guy who had abducted him, Mr. Ju-hyuk, took pride in his position of authority and used his axe to mock the president. President Baek yelled for his phone and to be freed. Mr. Ju-hyuk refused, his cruel enjoyment visible in his eyes. The president was now at the mercy of his captive after the roles had been reversed. Mr. Ju-hyuk said that he had learned a startling fact from the president's phone. A concealed camera had been installed in the business restroom. The president was visibly shocked and found it difficult to grasp the seriousness of the situation. Mr. Ju-hyuk, unfazed by the president's fury, emphasized that their world was full of bizarre occurrences and that he had the authority to reveal the president's misconduct to the police. He highlighted the president's ignorance of the present situation by taking advantage of his fragility. Mr. Ju-hyuk proceeded to exert his authority while the president thought over his alternatives. He depicted the president as a wealthy guy who trampled on the lives of the people, intending to smack him for each offense. He welcomed the chance to impose physical and mental dominance over the president. President Baek Duk-man begged Mr. Ju-hyuk for his release, questioning his motivations and the pleasure he had in his deeds. The president openly questioned if it was acceptable to look down on people and disregard their lives. Despite the president's request, Mr. Ju-hyuk made clear his genuine motivations. He wanted the president to suffer from the same injustice that he had meted out to others. He thought that his status as president had protected him from the trials of everyday life, and now it was time to take responsibility for his actions. President Baek Duk-man asked Mr. Ju-hyuk what he wanted from him out of desperation. The president should experience the same sense of unfairness and despair that he had imposed upon others. Mr. Ju-hyuk's reply was chilling. He sought to turn the president into a subservient pet who would do what he was told. The president fought against his chains as thoughts of escape rushed through his head. Even without the physical restrictions that kept him hostage, he saw the hopelessness of his condition. His optimism was dashed, however, as he heard noises from outside the chamber. He was surprised when a gang of people stormed in and said they were there to help him. He attempted to understand their motivations, but his head was filled with confusion. The president clung to the little optimism that appeared despite his inability to comprehend why they would save him. Mr. Ju-hyuk was unperturbed by their presence and exhibited composure. He accepted their goal but was adamant about continuing. The gang became uneasy, thinking something was wrong. The president's gut told him that things may not be as they seemed in this case. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and press that bell icon to know about our latest videos.